Have you ever stopped to think about how a place's history, its battles, its big wins, even just its landscape gets sort of imprinted on everything, like its art, its buildings, even the way people dress?
It's often in the details, isn't it? Not just the big historical elements.
Exactly. Sometimes it's the curve of an arch or, I don't know, the cut of a sleeve that tells the deepest story. Okay, so let's try and unpack some of that today. We're going on a really fascinating deep dive into the incredibly rich tapestry of Spanish civilization and its distinctive style.
It's quite a journey we're mapping out. We're talking about 1,000 years of history, really.
Yeah, easily. Starting way back with the Visigoths arriving in the 5th century, right up through the imperial power of the Golden Age and even beyond.
And we're planning to touch on quite a range of things.
Yeah.
From those huge monumental cathedrals that just dominate the skyline to the really intimate details, things like interior design, furniture, and even the fashion trends that maybe surprisingly started in Spain and spread across Europe. And what's really great, I think, is the range of sources we have to draw on here. It gives us this almost panoramic view.
Okay.
You've got historical notes digging into identity, really detailed insights into how the architecture changed over time, the evolution of fashion, which is fascinating in itself, the crucial role that politics and religion played, obviously, and even the tiny details, the nuances of furniture types and ornamentation.
So our mission today, if you like, is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge from all that.
Yeah, connect the dots.
And connect the dots for you to help understand not just what makes up Spanish style, but why it ended up looking the way it does, how all these different pieces came together to create something so Spanish.
Right, how it coalesced.
Think of it maybe as a shortcut, a way to get really well informed about the how and why behind Spain's unique look and its cultural footprint.
We want to go beyond just scratching the surface.
Definitely. Find those surprising little facts, those aha moments that, make learning actually fun and rewarding.
Keep you hooked, hopefully, without making it feel like a history lecture.
Exactly. Turn potentially dense stuff into a conversation that, hopefully really sticks with you. So, foundations first. Let's set the stage a bit, because to really get Spanish style, you absolutely have to appreciate where it came from, these enduring foundations. And they were, like you said, literally 1,000 years in the making.
A massive chunk of time.
Yeah. We're talking the period from when the Visigoths first came onto the scene in the 5th century. They were a Germanic tribe, right?
Yeah.
Who set up a kingdom on the Iberian Peninsula.
That's right.
All the way up to the late 15th century.
Yeah.
So leading right into the reign of Ferdinand and Isabella, the Catholic monarchs.
And this wasn't just a smooth, linear progression. Not at all. It was more like a crucible, often brutal.
That's a good word for it. A crucible.
Yeah.
You have to imagine a whole millennium of almost constant struggle, just struggling for existence, often in a pretty harsh, challenging environment.
Shaped by waves of different groups coming in, invasions.
Yeah, internal fights, and then that incredibly slow, difficult process of the Reconquista, the reconquest.
And out of that whole intense period, that crucible, a really distinct Hispanic character started to emerge. There was a famous Spanish historian and philologist, Ramon Menendez Pidal.
Okay.
And he identified several key traits he saw as, fundamental to Hispanic peoples. Things like a profound sense of austerity, a kind of stoicism that let them endure incredible hardship, a really fierce individualism, and also bravery, sometimes he noted, bordering on rashness.
Right. Almost foolhardy bravery.
Perhaps. And also, interestingly, this deep-seated desire for what he called imperishable fame, not just fleeting glory,
No, something lasting.
Exactly. The kind of remembrance that lives on through history, making sure your deeds aren't forgotten.
Wow. That's quite a set of traits.
It is, and it raises a really important question one historians still debate. How much of Spain's character, even today, can you actually trace back to those foundational centuries?
So the influence is debated.
Oh, absolutely. Some historians emphasize the original Iberian roots, others stress the huge impact of Roman culture, Romanization, and others really focus on that transformative period of Islamic rule, the Moorish period, and then the Christian Reconquista that followed.
So different schools of thought on the exact mix.
Right. But whatever the precise weighting you give to each element, ethnic, religious, cultural, the impact of those medieval centuries on the making of Hispanic civilization is just undeniable.
And you think you can still see echoes today?
I think so, surprisingly. Maybe you see echoes of that stoicism in, say, the national resilience during tough economic times, or perhaps even in the sort of understated elegance you sometimes find in Spanish fashion, which often seems to favor lasting quality over just being flashy.
Huh? That's interesting. That image of the crucible is powerful. It makes me think, okay, if there was this foundational struggle for identity, how did the actual land, the geography itself, play into shaping Spain?
Geography as destiny.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you look at a map, Spain's borders are pretty unique, aren't they? They almost tell a story.
They really do. So much of the country is bordered by water. You've got that incredibly long, famous Mediterranean coast running down the eastern side.
The costas, yeah.
Right, those sun-drenched costas stretching all the way from Catalonia up north, right down to Andalusia in the south.
And then the Atlantic.
Then the Atlantic hits the northwestern and southwestern corners, flowing into the big Gulf of Cadiz down there, and also lapping the northern coast as the Cantabrian Sea.
So it really is a peninsula, almost like an island in how self-contained it looks on the map.
Very much so. But crucially, with these key maritime access points to the wider world.
Which obviously became incredibly important later during the Age of Exploration.
Absolutely vital. But that unique geography, while it gave natural defenses and later routes for trade and exploration, also played a part in internal divisions.
Divisions that are still around today.
Very much so. And modern Spain has actually been quite forward-thinking and accepting and even celebrating these diverse regional identities within the larger national state.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, today, Spain is divided into 17 autonomous communities. And if you look at their shapes, their borders, they're often directly shaped around those old historic kingdoms we were just talking about.
Like Aragon, Castile.
Exactly. Entities like Aragon, Castile, Leon, Murcia, each one has its own proud heritage, sometimes distinct languages like Catalan or Basque,
Right.
and definitely unique cultural nuances. And then those communities are further split into 50 provinces altogether.
Wow, so it's quite a patchwork.
It really highlights how deeply rooted those historical identities are, how that medieval patchwork of kingdoms and territories has been preserved, even celebrated, in the way modern Spain is structured. It reflects this profound sense of place and identity that's just central to understanding Spain, I think.
Okay, let's shift focus then to something you can, well, literally walk through the architecture. This feels like where you can really start to see those foundational influences we talked about, Roman, Visigothic, and especially the Moorish influence playing out visually in stone and mortar.
Absolutely. And we can start with the Romanesque period in Spain. Now, for the most part, Spanish Romanesque shares a lot of characteristics with French Romanesque design. You know, the typical features.
Stout, heavy forms, rounded arches.
Exactly. Thick masonry, relatively small windows, that classic Romanesque look.
You mentioned Moorish influence.
Yeah.
Even back then.
Yes. And this is where it gets really interesting. Even in these early Romanesque buildings, you find these subtle but actually quite strong hints of Moorish practice creeping in.
Like where?
Okay, take the Collegiate Church of Isidoro in Leon. It's a magnificent Romanesque basilica, very much in line with French ideas overall.
Right.
But look closely at the arches in the aisle arcade. You'll notice they aren't purely semicircular Roman arches. They actually create distinct horseshoe forms.
The classic Moorish arch shape.
Precisely. And also where the barrel-vaulted transepts, the arms of the cross shape, join the main nave, the arches have this really captivating cusp scalloped edging.
Okay, I can picture that, like a little curved indentations.
Exactly. Those are strong, unmistakable whispers of Moorish influence right there in the heart of a Christian Romanesque design.
Wow. Any other examples?
Well, consider the Cistercian monastery of Poblet. Some sources mention slightly pointed barrel vaults in the refectory, the dining hall, and pointed arches in the dormitory.
Pointed arches, isn't that more Gothic?
It is, which raises the question, was this a subtle awareness of Moorish pointed arches, which they also used, or perhaps an early, almost unconscious nudge towards the Gothic style that was developing?
So it's a bit ambiguous.
A little. But the point is, this wasn't just an isolated detail here or there. The sources emphasize that in these specific details, and also in its use of strong, abstractly patterned decoration, Spanish design uniquely reflects this special Islamic influence.
And you said that influence lasted. even into the Gothic period.
Remarkably, yes. It extended even into much later Gothic work. And this early fusion is just so critical because it shows that Spanish design wasn't just importing European styles wholesale, it was actively integrating them with the influences already present, particularly the Moorish ones, creating something genuinely unique, often unexpected.
So it was a real melting pot of styles.
Absolutely. And remember, this cultural exchange wasn't just one way. While later, the Crusades brought some awareness of Near Eastern culture into Central Europe.
Right.
There was an earlier and much deeper connection formed by the rapid spread of Islamic religion and culture across North Africa, which then reached and utterly transformed Spain through the military invasion starting in the early 8th century.
And that's when cities like Cordoba became major centers.
Huge centers. Cordoba, under Islamic rule, grew to be the largest medieval city in Western Europe. Population maybe hitting 600,000 at its peak, just massive.
Incredible.
So in architecture and design throughout the medieval period in Spain, you clearly see this compelling coexistence of two powerful traditions.
Yeah.
The Romanesque influence coming down from southern France and the Islamic or Moorish influence coming across from North Africa.
A constant back and forth.
Exactly. This constant interplay of styles and ideas created a truly distinct architectural language that really defined Spain for centuries.
Okay, so from those early fusions, we move into the high medieval centuries and the arrival of Gothic grandeur. As you just said, that coexistence of French Romanesque and Islamic traditions was absolutely key.
Fundamental.
And when we think Gothic, often we picture those soaring cathedrals, right? Really pushing upwards, reaching for the heavens.
That's the classic image.
So how did Spain adapt it? Did they just copy the French?
Not quite. They took the flamboyant style of late Gothic architecture, which was popular in 15th century France, characterized by very elaborate tracery like flickering flames.
Okay.
And they really made it their own. Spanish flamboyant architects developed these incredibly intricate forms of vaulting the ceilings, sometimes called stellar vaulting or star vaults.
Star vaults?
Yeah, imagine looking up and seeing these complex, almost dizzying star-like patterns formed by the ribs on the ceiling. They were pushing the boundaries of what you could do with stone and engineering, creating these incredible curvilinear designs overhead.
Wow. So can we look at some specific cathedrals where this plays out?
Definitely. Let's take a few iconic examples that really showcase this blend and ambition. We could start with the old Salamanca Cathedral.
Okay, Salamanca.
Construction started around 1120, finished maybe 1178, so this is early Gothic. It has this really distinctive dome over the crossing where the nave and transepts meet. And it was heavily influenced by southern French Romanesque styles, particularly from the Aquitaine region.
So still showing those French roots.
Very much so. It's a powerful, quite robust start to the Spanish Gothic story. But then you jump forward to Toledo Cathedral, a high Gothic masterpiece.
Oh, Toledo. What's special there?
Well, first off, the sheer scale. It's nearly 50 feet wider than comparable high Gothic cathedrals from the same time in France or England.
50 feet wider. That's enormous.
It's an astounding difference. Architecturally, it has some unique features, too. The choir enclosure is actually located west of the main crossing, which is unusual. The sanctuary, the curved bit around the main altar, is quite shallow.
Okay.
And dominating that sanctuary is an immense wooden retablo that's the huge, elaborately carved screen behind the altar, flanked by tiers of intricate arcaded elements.
A giant altarpiece, basically.
A monumental one. And it really makes you ask, doesn't it? What architectural choices were they making here to create something so distinct, so massive?
It wasn't just about size for size's sake.
I don't think so. It feels like it was about crafting a specific kind of experience, awe-inspiring, spatial, spiritual, that reflected Spain's growing power at the time and its deep religious conviction.
And then you mentioned Seville Cathedral. You called it a behemoth.
Oh, it absolutely is. It is, in fact, the largest medieval cathedral anywhere, in any country.
The largest, wow.
And significantly, it was built on the very site of a mosque that was of the same enormous size, almost like a deliberate statement of Christian triumph and conversion.
Right, building over the old sacred site.
Exactly. The ambition is just breathtaking. To give you a sense of scale, just one single aisle of Seville Cathedral is about the size of the entire nave and choir of a typical abbey church, and it has 4 of those aisles plus the huge central nave.
Unbelievable how wide and high is the nave.
The great central nave is a monumental 55 feet wide, measured center to center of the piers, and an astounding 130 feet high.
Just staggering numbers.
They really are. And surrounding the main church, taking up the same depth as the aisles, are numerous chapels, each one packed with art and devotional objects.
And the vaulting? Is it that flamboyant style?
The vaulting is incredibly rich, yes, loaded with bosses, those carved keystones where the ribs meet in many places. Some architectural historians note that maybe the lines can appear a bit confused or structurally weaker compared to the logical purity of French Gothic.
Okay.
But the sheer scale and the decorative ambition are just mind-boggling. It's a testament to Spain's immense wealth and conviction during its golden age.
Okay, so after all that Gothic exuberance, Spain moves into its Renaissance period. But you mentioned it wasn't straightforward. There were two distinct phases.
That's right. Much like its history, Spain reimagined classical forms through two incredibly distinct, almost opposing phases. First, Plateresque, and then Disornamentado.
Let's start with Plateresque. When was that, and what does the name mean?
Plateresque flourished roughly from 1475 to 1550, and the name itself is really evocative. It comes from plateros,
Which means?
silver or goldsmiths. The idea is that the incredibly florid, intricate ornamentation you see in this architectural style was inspired by the delicate, detailed work of these master craftsmen.
Ah, okay. So like silversmith work, but on building scale.
Exactly. Think of Plateresque as the meticulous detail of a silversmith writ large onto a facade. Every surface becomes a canvas for delicate, intricate carving.
What kind of details are we talking here?
It's a really distinctive mix. You get Italian Renaissance motifs, things like classical columns and pediments, and those elegant, often symmetrical decorative elements called candelabra motifs.
Like fancy candlesticks.
Sort of, yeah. Combined freely, often exuberantly, with existing Moorish ornamental details. So you get these extremely decorated facades covered in what looks like stone filigree, very reminiscent of intricate silverwork.
And it wasn't just decorative.
Now, in art particularly, artists use this highly decorative style not just for beauty, but also to very overtly express their unwavering support for the doctrines of the church. It was beauty with a message.
Got it. Can you give an example?
Absolutely. The classic example is the facade of the University of Salamanca. We don't actually know the architect, but its Plateresque facade is just iconic, completely covered in this delicate lacework of stone carving.
Okay, Salamanca University.
Or think about Granada Cathedral. Construction started in 1528 under an architect named Diego de Silo. He's maybe best known for an earlier Plateresque masterpiece, the Escalera Dorada, the Golden Staircase at Burgos Cathedral.
Right.
At Granada, Silo masterfully brought in classical elements, columns, round arches, a huge dome, and integrated them into the essentially Gothic structure, creating this stunning fusion of styles with that Plateresque richness of detail.
But then you said there was a reaction, Disornamentado.
Exactly, almost a direct counterpoint. This phase, Disornamentado, runs roughly from 1500 through to 1659, overlapping somewhat.
And what does that name mean for design?
It literally means without ornaments.
Ah, so the complete opposite.
Pretty much. It was an austere, almost severe phase, a deliberate stripping back of all that excessive, almost riotous decoration that characterized Plateresque.
Why the change?
Well, the prominent architect here was Juan de Herrera, and his style, often called Herreresque, really embodied this shift. Think of Disornamentado as arriving almost like a spiritual cleansing, stripping away every non-essential ornament, embracing a kind of stark, monumental honesty.
Like a building is unadorned as a soldier in armor.
That's a great analogy. Powerful, unadorned. The absolute prime example, and it's truly monumental, is the Escorial.
The Escorial, right, near me.
Yes. It's this vast historical residence of the King of Spain, but it's also a monastery, a palace, a library, and a mausoleum all rolled into one.
Huge complex.
Immense. It was designed initially by Juan Bautista de Toledo and then completed by Juan de Herrera, and it represents such a stark contrast to that Plateresque exuberance we just talked about.
How so?
Its monumental scale, its severe clean lines, its very limited ornamentation. It all speaks to a very different aesthetic sensibility and probably a different political one too. One focused on sobriety, immense power, and an unyielding, perhaps more austere faith. But then the pendulum swings again. Dramatically.
Doesn't it always?
Almost as if that austerity couldn't last. The next and final phase of the Spanish Renaissance is known as Churrigueresque.
Churrigueresque. That's a mouthful.
It is. It lasts from about 1650 to 1780, running parallel to Baroque and Rococo styles elsewhere in Europe. The name comes from José Churriguera, who was a major architect of the style, part of a whole family of architects who really dominated it.
Okay, so if Disornamentado was without ornament, what was Churrigueresque?
It was. Well, it raises that interesting question, doesn't it? How does a society swing from such stark severity, like disornamentado, to such lavish, almost unrestrained excess in its aesthetics with Churrigueresque?
A reaction.
It's generally understood as an extreme reaction against that prior austerity, a kind of explosion of artistic freedom, theatricality, leading to surface ornamentation of the most exuberant, most colorful sort imaginable.
So maximum ornament.
Absolutely maximalist. It's intricate, it's exaggerated, it's almost capricious. Imagine every single surface becoming a canvas for decoration.
Give me some examples of the features.
Okay, you'll see extravagant, undulating cornices that seem to ripple and twist. Spiraling columns, sometimes called Solomonic columns. Ornate balustrades. Elaborate stucco work, like shells and garlands of flowers and fruit, all working together in this almost dizzying display of form, light, and shadow.
That's intense.
It is. Look at the Baroque facade added to the Santiago de Compostela Cathedral. Right at the front of the original Romanesque building, there's this incredible altar adorned with a giant golden mollusk shell, the scallop shell, symbol of the pilgrim St. James.
Right.
But rendered with this unbelievable over-the-top flourish. Or think of El Transparente in Toledo Cathedral.
Yeah, transparente.
It's transparent.
Yes, it's a famous Baroque altarpiece by Churriguera himself.
Yeah.
It's a true explosion of light, sculpture, paint, and architecture, all designed to appear miraculously illuminated from behind by a hidden skylight cut into the vault above.
Wow. Pure theater.
Pure theater. Pure expressions of this maximalist philosophy, often designed to inspire awe, intense devotion, and a real sense of divine drama. Okay, before we move on entirely from architecture, we absolutely have to talk about an influence that was there long before the Renaissance styles and ran alongside them, especially in interiors.
Yeah.
That's the Moorish influence again, right?
Yeah.
Embodied in the mudéjar style.
Yes, mudéjar is crucial. Spanning roughly the 12th to the 16th centuries, mudéjar refers specifically to the architecture created by the Moors Muslims and also native Andalusians who remained living in Christian territory after the Reconquista, but who didn't convert to Christianity.
So it's literally Muslims building for or alongside Christians.
Essentially, yes. Or Christians employing Moorish craftsmen and adopting their styles. It's often described as an intermarriage of Christian and Islam in architecture. A fascinating cultural dialogue expressed in stone, wood, and tile.
And what are the key features you see?
You see those enduring elements of Moorish style we touched on earlier. The graceful horseshoe arches, definitely. That incredibly intricate geometric stucco work yeseria that looks like delicate lace carved from plaster.
Right.
And the ornamental use of calligraphy, turning religious texts or blessings into beautiful decorative patterns. All of these Moorish elements are often seamlessly woven into structures that might be fundamentally Christian in their layout, like churches or palaces.
Any big examples?
Well, the Mezquita, the Great Mosque in Cordoba, is the ultimate example of original Moorish lavishness, and parts of it were extended and adapted during this period, showcasing all these features. But the influence went far beyond just mosques and cathedrals.
Where else would you see it?
You can still see it today in living examples like the famous patios of Cordoba, those inner courtyards, often hidden from the street, adorned with vibrant, complex tile patterns, fountains, lush greenery. That whole sensibility of an inward-facing, cool, oasis-like space really harks back to Moorish design principles.
Okay.
Or look at the Palacio de las Dueñas, a beautiful noble house in Seville. Or even much later buildings like the Grand Hotel Alfonso III in Seville, built in the early 20th century, but consciously adopting these mudéjar and Moorish motifs.
So there's really lasting legacy.
Absolutely. These are living examples of that incredible cultural blend. A testament to how deep and persistent the Moorish artistic legacy was, continuing to influence Spanish aesthetics for centuries, long after the Reconquista ended.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit now. Talk about the bigger forces shaping things, the political and religious landscape, because these colossal powers were clearly instrumental, shaping not just the grand cathedrals, but pretty much every facet of Spanish style and civilization, right?
Absolutely fundamental. And forging a unified kingdom in Spain, well, that was a monumental task, perhaps unlike anywhere else in Europe, given its history.
Oh, so?
Well, even very early on, pre-Christian history in Spain seems to have focused intensely on the idea of law, on legal jurisdiction, on the crown's responsibility to establish both justice and peace under a codified legal system.
So less about just brute force, more about legal structures.
To an extent, yes. It wasn't just about conquest, it was about building what some sources call a modern, rational, royal bureaucracy.
Hmm.
Interestingly, somewhat modeled on the hierarchical, organized structure of the church itself.
Okay. And this helped unify the kingdoms.
It was a key part of how the unified Spanish state began to take shape, yes? How those scattered kingdoms slowly started to coalesce under a central authority. And crucially, there was this declaration that the king is ruler of all the people.
What did that mean in practice?
It was a bold assertion. It essentially denied independent privileges to the powerful aristocracy. They were now forbidden from swearing any political oath against the crown.
Ah, so centralizing power away from the nobles.
Exactly. A critical and often quite ruthless step in creating a cohesive national identity and a formidable centralized state. And that centralized power, of course, was wielded by some truly transformative monarchs whose reigns just echo across the centuries. You have to start with Isabel II.
Isabella the Catholic.
The very same. Born 1451, Queen of Castile from 1474, then Queen of Aragon as well from 1479, through her marriage to Ferdinand II. Their joint rule, the famous Catholic monarchs, effectively created the permanent union of Spain, forging one unified realm out of those disparate kingdoms.
And she's key to the overseas empire too, right?
Absolutely. What's fascinating is how her vision, her drive, directly led to the start of Spain's huge overseas empire in the New World, most famously, obviously, by sponsoring Christopher Columbus's voyage in 1492. That just completely reshaped global history.
But it's a complex legacy.
Oh, incredibly complex. Her drive for unity also came with, well, the establishment of the Spanish Inquisition, and later the deeply painful expulsion of Jews and then Muslims who refused to convert. So it simultaneously solidified a unified Catholic identity, but also caused immense suffering and a huge loss of cultural diversity.
A paradox.
A profound one. But her strategic marriage to Ferdinand, her sponsorship of exploration, it absolutely laid the groundwork for Spain's global dominance in the centuries that followed, for better or for worse. Then, stepping forward, you have Charles the Guest, who later became Holy Roman Emperor Charles V.
He inherited a massive empire, didn't he?
Huge. Inheriting territories from all his grandparents, Isabella and Ferdinand, Maximilian the Tsars of Austria, Mary of Burgundy. His empire was truly global. Spain, the Netherlands, parts of Italy, Austria, vast areas of the Americas.
Must have been incredibly hard to govern.
An immense challenge. And his reign saw that empire expand even further. Think about Magellan. In 1521, Ferdinand Magellan, the Portuguese navigator, along with Rui Falero, went to Charles's court in Valladolid.
Offering their services.
Exactly, offering to find a western route to the Spice Islands. This led to Magellan sailing west, across the Pacific, eventually reaching the Philippines.
Right.
In the spring of 1521, he secured the very first alliance in the Pacific for Spain on Limassol Island. And then shortly after, he oversaw the conversion to Christianity of the ruler of Cebu Island and his chief men.
But Magellan didn't make it back.
Tragically, no. Just weeks later, he was killed in a fight with the people of nearby Mactan Island. But this story directly connects the Spanish monarchy under Charles V to incredible global exploration, immense historical impact, and the spread of Christianity, though often through violent encounters and with tragic outcomes, like for Magellan himself. It was just a time of unbelievably audacious ambition that literally redrew the map of the world. But then, if we move forward again to Philip IV, King of Spain from 1621 to 1665, and also King of Portugal for part of that time, his reign marks a really critical turning point.
A turn point how? What does this mean for the empire?
Well, it signifies the beginning of the painful decline of Spain as a great world power. After that golden age of expansion and consolidation under Isabella and Charles V, Philip V's time on the throne is marked by increasing challenges.
Like what?
Prolonged, costly wars across Europe, huge economic strain from trying to maintain that vast empire, and, importantly, the rising power of other European nations like France and England.
So the beginning of the end of dominance.
It was a slow, difficult descent from that peak of global preeminence, yes. But interestingly, still a period of immense cultural flowering. This was the age of Velázquez, after all.
Right. Okay, so fast forward quite a bit. What about Spain today, politically?
Well, today, Spain operates as a modern, democratic, constitutional monarchy.
Like the UK?
Similar structure, yes. Its current constitution declares Spain a social and democratic state, and it advocates for those essential modern values: freedom, justice, equality, political pluralism. It also provides for a clear separation of powers, executive, legislative, judicial.
So a modern democracy built on those complex historical layers.
Exactly, built on the foundations of its long, often very tumultuous history. The crown now serves primarily as a symbol of national unity and continuity. Now, shifting to religion, Roman Catholicism has obviously played a truly dominant, pervasive role throughout almost all of Spanish history. It shaped identity, politics, art, daily life for centuries. It's impossible to overstate its influence.
But what about now? Is it still as central?
Well, that raises a really important question. How does a historically incredibly devout nation navigate secularization in the modern world?
Yeah.
The sources note that while, yes, the vast majority of the population still identifies as Roman Catholic, for many people, especially those born after, say, 1950, its meaning might extend little beyond the major life rituals, being baptized, married, and buried within the church.
So more cultural than deeply practiced for some.
It suggests a societal shift, perhaps, where the deep historical roots of Catholicism are definitely still culturally present, maybe even fundamental to identity for many. But its day-to-day meaning might have evolved more towards cultural tradition or an identity marker rather than intensely practiced daily faith for everyone. But to truly understand its historical depth, you absolutely have to acknowledge the Reconquista, the reconquest.
That centuries-long struggle.
Exactly. Perhaps the single most defining struggle in Spanish history. In medieval Spain and Portugal, this was that series of military campaigns spanning centuries by the Christian states in the north to recapture territory from the Muslims, the Moors, who had occupied most of the Iberian Peninsula since way back in the early 8th century.
How long did it last?
Nearly 800 years. It effectively ended with the fall of the last Moorish kingdom, Granada, in 1492, the same year Columbus sailed.
Wow. So it profoundly shaped Spanish identity.
Profoundly. It wasn't just a military conflict, it was a cultural and religious crucible. It fostered a strong warrior ethos. It deeply embedded Catholicism as a core part of national identity.
Right.
And ironically, it also led to unique cultural fusions. Because as the Christian kingdoms reconquered territory, they absorbed and adapted many Moorish artistic and intellectual traditions.
So that constant push and pull between cultures.
Influenced everything. From politics and the drive for national unity to the very art and architecture we've been discussing, it created that unique blend of Christian and Islamic elements that defines so much of Spanish style. It's a powerful reminder that conflict, however brutal, can sometimes, unexpectedly, also be a source of profound cultural innovation.
Okay, from the grand sweep of history and buildings, let's zoom right in now onto something much more personal, but still incredibly reflective of the times. Fashion.
Yes, Spanish fashion in the 16th century.
It was a pivotal period, wasn't it? Spain was basically the superpower. The empire was immense, incredibly wealthy, powerful.
The age of conquests, exploration, expansion into the Americas after Columbus in 92.
Right. And other explorers were going all over the globe, opening up new sea routes around Africa, Asia, across the Pacific, bringing back new goods, new ideas.
And all that wealth and global reach was directly reflected in Spanish clothing, Spanish costume, which, maybe surprisingly to some, became the dominant fashion across much of Europe for a time.
Really, Spanish style set the trend.
Absolutely. Around 1500, the really distinctive silhouette, especially for women, was created primarily by something called the Spanish farthingale.
Farthingale, what was that?
It was essentially a hooped petticoat. It originated in Spain, and it formed this stiff, conical, or bell shape, giving skirts a very rigid, wide base.
Okay, and the top half?
Bodices became very smooth, very tightly fitted, often stiffened inside with boning or other materials to create this really straight, rigid corso. And sleeves became much more significant, bigger, often puffed or slashed to show contrasting fabrics underneath.
So very structured, formal look overall.
Very structured, yes. Projecting an image of control, decorum, maybe even severity.
And this look caught on elsewhere.
It did. By the period roughly 1560 to 1590, sometimes called the period of elegant formality, Spain's undeniable power made their particular style, this severe formality and clever tailoring, fashionable across almost all of Europe.
Even contrasting with, say, Italy.
Yes, it offered a strong contrast to a perhaps more relaxed, maybe more colorful Italian look that had been influential earlier. The Spanish look wasn't just a fashion statement. It was almost like a sartorial symbol of the empire's rigid control, its perceived moral rectitude, projecting this image of unassailable power and piety.
So clothes is imperial propaganda, almost.
Yes, surprisingly effective soft power. You saw key elements developing too. Ruffs, those iconic starched neck ruffles.
Yeah, the big white ones.
They gradually widened and became separate pieces, no longer just the frilled collar of the shirt. And this is when you first see labor-intensive lace appear as a major mark of luxury.
Lace.
Yes, intricate handmade lace, on par with wearing velvets or jewels, adorning cuffs and those ruffs. Necklines tended to be either modestly at bust level or right up to the chin, very high.
And the overall shape.
Still that triangular silhouette. Narrow waists, often ending in a sharp point at the front, flowing out into those full farthingale-supported skirts. And women's sleeves got even more elaborate, styled into puffs, decorative tabs, rolls of fabric at the shoulder, adding layers of intricate detail.
Was men's fashion similar in terms of formality?
Very much so. Male and female fashions actually followed remarkably similar trends in terms of rich adornments and structured silhouettes. There's a famous portrait of Don Carlos of Spain.
Philip II's son.
That's the one, painted around 1564. The horizontal lines decorating his doublet, that's the close-fitting jacket, were very typical of the Spanish style, reinforced with careful stitching, heavy braid, creating this powerful, controlled volume.
Okay.
And his satin cloak had bands of slashed black velvet, a subtle but incredibly luxurious decoration. It was all about controlled elegance, displaying rich materials, but often in dark colors like black. Not necessarily flashy, but projecting this quiet, undeniable wealth and status. By the late 16th century, European men were pretty much uniformly wearing a kind of three-piece suit of the era.
Which consisted of?
A doublet, often worn over it, a jerkin, which was like a close-fitting vest or jacket, and then hose covering the legs, all topped off with a cloak or sometimes a longer robe.
And the hose? Like tights.
Well, they evolved. Trousers, or hose, came in an increasing variety of styles. You had breeches, which were shorter, fuller pants ending around the knee. You had trunk hose, which were very short, often heavily padded, almost like puffy shorts,
Right.
worn over tighter hose beneath. And upper stocks. These were all split-leg garments, definitively male, marking that clear, sartorial difference from women's skirts.
And you mentioned padding.
Yes. And what's really fascinating here is how tailoring and padding were used quite deliberately to exaggerate masculine areas. Shoulders were often padded to look broader. The groin area was emphasized by those heavily padded trump hose, thighs too, even as the overall silhouette may be rounded slightly from the earlier severity.
So shaping the body to project power.
Absolutely. A deliberate projection of power, virility, status, all through exaggerated form. And, for you, the listener, it's interesting to notice how even the most dashing, supposedly masculine men of the era used incredibly elaborate textiles and luxurious accessories.
Right, what?
Earrings were common for men, pendants worn around the neck, feathers decorating their hats, exquisite embroidery on their clothes.
So dandy and adventurer weren't mutually exclusive.
Not at all. They coexisted happily. An elegant nobleman was expected not only to be skilled in fighting or politics, but also to dance gracefully, write poetry, converse wittily. It was a time of really complex, multifaceted masculinity expressed vividly through these clothing choices. And of course, this era of immense power, wealth, and exploration also fueled Spain's golden age of art, a period of just extraordinary creativity and influence.
Where do we start with the Golden Age artist?
You really have to start with El Greco. His actual name was Domenicos Theotokopoulos. He was originally from Crete, but he settled in Toledo and became Spain's principal Mannerist painter.
Mannerist. What's that mean?
Mannerism was a style bridging the High Renaissance and the Baroque, often characterized by elongated figures, artificial poses, sometimes unsettling perspectives and colors. El Greco had a very distinctive take on it.
What was his style like?
He mainly painted austere religious subjects, some say inspired by the intense spiritual zeal of the Jesuit order, which was very influential in Counter-Reformation Spain. His style is instantly recognizable. Those elongated, almost spectral figures, often with grave, intense expressions, frequently gazing upwards.
Creating a mystical feeling.
Exactly, producing these mystical, melancholic, deeply spiritual effects. His key works. Think of The Burial of Count Orgaz.
That's the famous one in Toledo.
Yes, in the Church of Santa Tome. It's a monumental painting depicting a local miracle, rendered with dramatic composition, vibrant, almost jarring colors, and that mix of earthly realism in the lower half and heavenly vision above.
And other work.
The vision of St. John Divine, also known as the opening of the fifth seal, is another powerful one. It really showcases his distinctive swirling forms, that otherworldly light, those elongated figures again. His works just embodied this unique spiritual intensity that perfectly captured the religious fervor, maybe also the anxieties of that period in Spain. And El Greco leads us into the broader golden age of Spanish art, which is often categorized within the Baroque style, though, as always, with its own distinct Spanish flavor, sometimes even called churrigueresque in its most theatrical forms, linking back to that architectural style.
Okay, so Spanish Baroque painting, what are the key characteristics?
It generally reflects the naturalism and the intense emotionality that you find in Baroque art across Europe. Key features include that dramatic use of light and shade contrasts. The technical term is tenebrism.
Tenebrism.
Yeah, from the Italian tenebroso, meaning gloomy or dark. It's where figures seem to emerge dramatically from deep, dark shadows into a stark, often focused light. Creates a really powerful, almost theatrical effect.
Like a spotlight on stage.
Exactly. There's also often a noticeable sobriety of color in many Spanish Baroque works. A preference for earthy tones, rich blacks, deep reds, which directly link them to Italian masters who use similar palettes, especially Caravaggio and his followers, the Caravaggisti.
So realism combined with drama.
Intense realism, yes, combined with profound emotional and spiritual depth. Often used very effectively to convey religious messages with a kind of raw, immediate power. And the undisputed leading artist of the Spanish Baroque in the 17th century was Diego Velázquez.
Velázquez, the court painter.
Yes, served as royal painter to King Philip IV for decades. His mastery of realism, his handling of light, his psychological depth, it's just unparalleled. He's rightly considered one of the most important painters in all of European history.
What are his most famous works?
Well, you absolutely have to mention Las Meninas, the Maids of Honor.
Ah, yes, the one with the little princess in the mirror.
Exactly. It's such a complex, multi-layered portrait of the royal family, including Velázquez himself at his easel. It plays with perspective and representation in ways that still fascinate art historians today. It almost invites you, the viewer, directly into the scene in the palace.
And any others.
His portrait of Pope Innocent X is another absolute masterpiece. Apparently, the Pope himself, upon seeing it, famously exclaimed, "Troppo vero."
Meaning?
Too true. He was marveling at its unflinching realism, how Velázquez hadn't flattered him but captured his fierce intelligence and perhaps his ruthlessness. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Velázquez's work is just a masterclass in psychological depth and realism. He didn't just paint a likeness, he captured the inner life, the complex character of his subjects. Then, moving forward again, into the Romantic period, late 18th, early 19th centuries, we find Francisco Goya.
Goya, another court painter, but very different.
Very different, yes. Though he was a court painter for a time, his work is strongly associated with Romanticism and especially stands out for its poignant, often incredibly brutal, depictions of the human condition and the intense political turmoil of his era.
He didn't hold back.
Not at all. He didn't shy away from uncomfortable, horrific truths. He often used his art as powerful social commentary, critiquing the follies and brutalities he saw around him.
Can you give examples?
Well, from his later very dark black painting series painted directly onto the walls of his house, there's the terrifying Kronos devouring one of his children, also known as Saturn devouring his son.
Yes, horrifying image.
It's a visceral image of destructive power, madness, chaos. Many see it reflecting his deep disillusionment with humanity after years of war and political upheaval.
And his war paintings.
The Executions of the 3rd of May, 1808, is perhaps the most famous. It captures the raw horror of war and resistance against Napoleon's invading forces in Madrid, its unflinching portrayal of the victims, their fear and defiance, contrasted with the faceless, mechanical brutality of the firing squad. It's unforgettable.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How does an artist capture the raw truth of their time, the suffering, the corruption, and transform it into something timeless, something universally impactful?
Exactly. That's the power of Goya. He truly embodied the artist as a fearless social commentator, using his canvas, his prints, to reflect and critique his world with an intensity that still resonates incredibly powerfully today. He forces you to confront difficult realities.
Okay, let's step inside now. Let's really explore the canvas of Spanish interior design, the furniture, the ornamentation. Because Spanish interiors sound like they were incredible blends, really embodying that cultural fusion we keep talking about.
They absolutely were, combining Moorish and Renaissance details in a way that felt completely natural, uniquely Spanish. Even in relatively simple plastered houses, you'd find them enriched with these key elements. Beautifully crafted wood, intricate wrought iron, and vibrant tile accents, every surface really contributed to the overall aesthetic.
So paint a picture. If I walked into a Spanish house from that era, what would I see?
Okay. Well, the main doors would likely be heavy, imposing wooden panels, often topped with those graceful Moorish horseshoe arches, providing both security and that distinctive welcoming look.
And inside?
Rooms were typically quite long and narrow, which creates a sense of maybe intimate enclosure. Ceilings might have exposed wooden beams, often painted, or sometimes shallow wooden panels forming intricate geometric patterns, artisanato ceilings.
Ah, another direct nod to the Moorish love of geometry.
Exactly, that love of complex tessellations. Doors and windows would be deeply recessed into the thick walls, good for insulation. Often protected on the outside by elegant wrought iron grills, rejas, adding security, but also real decorative flair.
And inside, shutters.
Heavy wooden shutters, yes, or maybe adjustable Venetian blinds for controlling light and privacy, absolutely essential in the strong Spanish sun.
Floors.
Floors would typically be cool, practical tiles or sometimes brick, perfect for keeping the interiors comfortable in the heat.
And the walls wouldn't be bare, I assume.
Definitely not. They'd be richly ornamented, maybe framed paintings, large, intricately woven tapestries telling stories or depicting landscapes, and sometimes luxurious leather coverings, often embossed or painted.
Leather on the walls.
Yes, Guadamesi leather. It was a highly prized wall covering. And of course, rugs would cover the floors, adding warmth, color, pattern, a sense of layered comfort.
What about everyday objects, utensils?
For daily life, beautiful ceramics, especially Majolica ware, were common. Bronze and copper vessels were typically used for cooking and sometimes eating utensils, bringing a sense of beauty even to the most mundane, functional objects.
It sounds incredibly rich and textured, like every element tells a story.
It really does. A story of cultural fusion, practical beauty, and a deep, deep appreciation for craftsmanship. Now, when we look specifically at the furniture from the Spanish Renaissance, it was generally quite simple in its basic structural forms. Sometimes you might even say almost crude in its construction compared to, say, elaborate Italian pieces.
Yeah.
Its design basis was often rooted in the Italian early Renaissance, but with a distinct Spanish character.
What kind of wood did they use?
Mostly sturdy, locally available woods. Walnut was highly prized, but also oak, pine, even cedar, used for constructing chairs, tables, large chests.
Any unusual features?
Well, you'd find these massive armchairs, very solid, but interestingly, some were made with hinged stretchers, the bars connecting the legs at the front and back.
Why hinge?
So that the chair could actually be folded flat for moving about more easily, which suggests a certain practicality, maybe even a lingering nomadic sensibility, despite the furniture's overall bulk. And across the different periods, several key characteristics of Spanish furniture tend to stand out. They consistently reflect this blend of utility and artistry.
Like what defines Spanish furniture?
Well, typically it's rectangular in its basic form, with heavy, robust proportions. Creates a real sense of solidity, permanence, almost reflecting that Spanish stoicism we talked about earlier.
Structurally simple.
Often, yes.
Yes.
Structurally quite simple, sometimes lacking the complex architectural details like miniature columns or pediments that you might find on Italian furniture of the same period. The focus seems more on honest, strong construction.
You mentioned iron.
Yes, very characteristic. Spanish furniture frequently featured exposed iron braces and mounts, and visible nail heads weren't hidden. They were often quite prominent, almost celebrated as part of the honest, handcrafted construction.
What about upholstery?
Upholstery was very often made of durable leather, sometimes plain, sometimes beautifully tooled or embossed with patterns, providing a distinctive texture and real comfort.
And the legs.
Legs were commonly splayed, slanted outwards for greater stability, and you'd see various decorative details emerge over time. Things like the sugar barley twist, that spiraling turned leg shape, or the dynamic Flemish scroll, which is a carved S or C-shaped motif showing influence from the Low Countries. Or sometimes panels of caning.
And decoration on surfaces.
Surfaces were frequently decorated, often with quite precious inlays. Ivory, bone, sometimes mother of pearl or silver, creating intricate patterns against the dark wood, adding a touch of understated luxury and detail, even on these fundamentally robust pieces.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how utility and really solid construction were often the priority, but they still allowed for and clearly valued beautiful, intricate detail.
Exactly. It proves that practicality didn't have to exclude artistry. They could coexist beautifully.
Okay, building on those general features, can we talk about some specific, maybe iconic types of Spanish Renaissance furniture?
Absolutely. Perhaps the most distinctive, the most famous piece is the vargueno.
The vargueno, what is that exactly?
Imagine a sophisticated writing cabinet. It's basically composed of a chest, often quite rectangular, sitting on a separate stand. The stand itself could be simple trestles or a more elaborate structure with columns or arches called a puente or piedipuente.
On the chest part.
The chest usually has a fall front, so the front panel is hinged at the bottom and folds down, resting on pull-out supports to create a writing surface. And when you open it, wow.
What's inside?
An incredibly intricate interior. Numerous small drawers, compartments, sometimes even hidden spaces, all exquisitely decorated with carving, inlay, gilding. It was essentially a portable, incredibly luxurious secretaire, almost like a miniature architectural facade inside. Perfect for a nobleman who might need to travel, but still wanted his valuables and writing desk close at hand. A real statement piece.
You mentioned another type, papilera.
Yes, the papilera vargueno. Similar in overall form, a chest on a stand, but the key difference is without fall front. So its decorated interior of drawers and compartments was always visible, not hidden behind a folding lid, more like a display cabinet.
Okay. Any other characteristic chairs?
Definitely the salon de cadera, sometimes called a hip joint chair. This is essentially the Spanish version of the Italian Dante or Savonarola chair.
What does it look like?
It's characterized by its legs, which are typically semicircular curved pieces that crisscross in an X shape below the seat, connected by stretchers. It has curved armrests and usually a rectangular back, often covered in leather or velvet.
And also foldable.
Often, yes. Like the Savonarola chair, it was frequently designed to be foldable, again emphasizing that element of portability.
What about seating for more communal places? Like monasteries?
Right. For those settings, you'd find the monastery bench or sacristy bench. Typically very simple, very robust, often made of just two sturdy planks, one for the seat, one for the back, supported by solid trestle legs, and frequently reinforced with visible wrought iron bracing for extra strength. These are really the direct ancestors of the pews we see in churches today.
And storage. Just chests.
Large storage chests called arca were very common, yes, often quite plain but incredibly solid, used for storing valuables, linens, clothing. You also had armaria, which were essentially large, freestanding closets or cupboards, often with two doors.
And you mentioned a unique heating item.
Ah, yes, the brazier. Especially important given that Spanish houses could be chilly in winter, despite the sun. It was typically a metal pan brass, iron, or copper, often quite decorative, standing on legs. You'd fill it with hot charcoal embers for heating a room.
Not just for heat, though.
Sometimes also used for perfuming spaces. They might burn lavender or other fragrant herbs on the embers to scent the air. So each of these pieces really reflects a specific need, a cultural practice of the time, often beautifully crafted even when its primary purpose was purely functional. Now, moving into the Baroque period, Spanish furniture evolves further. It starts incorporating new influences, but it still retains those core characteristics of robustness and ornamentation.
How did tables change?
Tables often featured really substantial supports, either trestle supports at each end, sometimes elaborately carved, or four quite dramatically turned legs, often joined by sturdy stretchers near the floor for stability and visual weight.
Any new types of cabinets?
The contador became more prominent. This was essentially a Portuguese cabinet on a stand, often highly decorated with inlay or carving, showing that cross-cultural exchange happening within the Iberian Peninsula and beyond.
And influences from further north?
Yes, significant influence from Dutch and Flemish styles becomes noticeable. This brought in elements like intricate caning used for chairbacks and seats, which made them lighter visually and physically. You see more of that distinctive sugar barley twist for spiraling, turned legs. And the dynamic Flemish scroll motif becomes more common in carving. These added new layers of decorative complexity to the existing Spanish aesthetic.
Can you give an example of a Baroque chair type?
A classic example that shows this evolution is the salon frailero, literally the monk's chair.
Okay, what did that look like?
It was typically a medium-height armchair, often with simple, square legs connected by horizontal stretchers, maybe ending in bracket feet. A key feature was often a fretted or carved front splat below the seat. And the seat and back were very typically upholstered in sturdy leather, attached visibly with large, often decorative brass or iron nails.
That visible nail head thing again.
Exactly. That became part of its signature look, that honest construction. This design really shows how specific needs like the more austere functional requirements of monastic life and foreign influences, like maybe the use of leather upholstery influenced by Dutch styles, shaped Spanish design. It's a great testament to how Spanish craftsmen were constantly adapting, integrating diverse inspirations into their own unique aesthetic, but almost always prioritizing that durability and honest construction while still allowing for touches of real beauty.
Okay, so beyond the big furniture pieces, it sounds like the accessories and the ornamentation were absolutely crucial in defining the Spanish style, adding those layers of intricate beauty everywhere.
Absolutely crucial. Metalwork, for instance, especially in gold and silver, was incredibly sophisticated. Spain had ancient mining traditions, of course, and then came the massive influx of precious metals from the Americas.
So they had the materials and the skills.
And incredible skills. You'd find pieces ornamented using repousse. That's where the design is hammered into the metal from the back, creating a raised relief pattern on the front, and embossing, creating intricate textures directly on the surface.
Any specific techniques they were known for?
Silversmithing was particularly renowned for its filigree work. This is where incredibly fine, delicate, twisted wires of gold or silver are soldered together to create these intricate, almost lace-like patterns. It showcases just astounding levels of craftsmanship.
What about ceramics? Tile work?
Hugely important. Tilework and earthenware were another hallmark. Those vibrant, tin-glazed majolica ceramics, which originally came from Islamic traditions, were used absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
From stunning decorative wall panels covering entire walls, especially in Andalusia, to practical household items, like the majolica flask mentioned in the sources, decorated with bands of figures and animals. The majolica style, with its distinctive white glaze as a base for bold colors, often blue, green, yellow, manganese purple, added this vibrant, often geometric touch to both purely decorative and everyday objects. It reflects a real passion for pattern and color.
And textiles. Spain must have been central to the trade.
Absolutely central. Silk weaving, for example, developed into a major industry in Spain, particularly in cities like Granada and Seville. They produced brightly colored patterned silks and rich embroidery, often incorporating shimmering threads of actual silver or gold. Pure luxury, showcasing incredible skill.
Do they import fabrics too?
Oh, yes. Exquisite Italian fabrics, damask, brocade, velvet were certainly imported for the highest levels of society. But Spanish manufacturing of these same luxurious fabrics also flourished, often under Italian influence initially, creating a competitive, high-quality domestic textile industry.
What about tapestries?
Because of Spain's political connections with the Low Countries, especially Flanders, exquisite Flemish tapestries were readily available. These huge, intricate wall hangings were often found adorning the walls in grand palaces and noble homes, adding warmth, telling stories, and displaying incredible wealth and opulence.
Any particular fabric that was widely used?
Velvet seems to have been very popular, used for luxurious chair seats, cushions, and also as opulent wall hangings, adding deep color, rich texture, and a sense of profound richness to interiors.
But you mentioned leather earlier as being distinctly Spanish.
Yes, perhaps the most distinctively Spanish material, used widely as an alternative to textiles, partly because it was so durable, but also because they developed such artistry with it. Spanish leather crafts, centered especially in the city of Córdoba, became world-renowned.
What were they famous for?
They specialized in the finishing, coloring, tooling, and embossing of leather. They could create incredibly detailed and durable pieces used for everything from wall hangings, those guaramesí panels, to furniture upholstery covering chests, book binding, even lining entire rooms sometimes.
And Cordovan leather. Is that from Córdoba?
Exactly. Cordovan leather, originally referring to goat leather processed in Córdoba, became famous for its quality, its softness, its unique sheen, often dyed rich colors. It became a highly regarded Spanish export, a symbol of the quality and artistry of Spanish craftsmanship. It all just demonstrates the incredible level of craft and luxury that permeated every level of Spanish design, from the scale of a cathedral down to the details on a leather box or a ceramic plate. A deep cultural appreciation for enduring quality and exquisite detail.
Okay, so let's talk about where you can actually see all of this come together, where these influences coalesce into tangible, breathtaking masterpieces. And you have to start with the Alhambra in Granada. Right?
You absolutely have to. The Alhambra, it's really more than just a palace. It's a living testament to Moorish art and architecture at its absolute zenith under the Nasrid dynasty, a true pinnacle of artistic achievement.
It was a palace and a fortress?
Yes,
Yeah.
for the Moorish monarchs of Granada, and the name itself, Alhambra, means the red in Arabic. It probably comes from the reddish color of the tapia, the rammed earth mixed with gravel that was used to build its outer walls, gives it that distinctive hue against the backdrop of the Sierra Nevada mountains behind it.
And the details inside are just legendary, aren't they?
Legendary is the right word. They are simply breathtaking in their intricacy and their sheer beauty. You see alicatado everywhere. That's the incredibly intricate geometric tile work, cut into precise shapes and fitted together like a mosaic, covering lower walls in dazzling patterns, especially famous in places like the Hall of the Ambassadors and the Tower of Camores.
What else stands out?
There's a magnificent golden dome. There are pavilions with these delicate filigree walls. That's the yeseria again. Plaster carved with such incredible intricacy it looks like lace. And exquisite wooden domed ceilings, artisanado, often with complex star patterns. Some sources even suggest one pavilion's design might have been modeled on a Cistercian lavabo, a communal wash basin from a Christian monastery.
Really? Showing that blend again.
An unexpected blend, yes.
Yeah.
These beautiful pavilions project out into the serene courtyards, like the incredibly famous Court of the Lions.
Ah, the Fountain of the Lions.
Exactly. The colonnades around the courts are paved with gleaming white marble, and right in the center of the Court of the Lions is the Fuente de los Leones, that unique fountain. An alabaster basin held up by the figures of 12 white marble lions, which are seen as emblems of strength and courage, spouting water.
It's surrounded by columns.
Yes, an ornately decorated gallery surrounds that court, supported by an incredible 124 slender, delicate white marble columns. It creates this feeling of a cool, shaded forest of stone.
You just get lost in the details.
You absolutely could. The intricate Alhambra carving that seems to cover every surface, walls, ceilings, arches, the mesmerizing tiling work, the stunning interior art, the elegant Arabic calligraphy adorning the walls, often quoting poetry or verses from the Quran, transformed into pure abstract decoration.
And there's the general life, too.
Yes, don't forget the Palacio de Generalife just nearby. That was the summer palace and country estate of the Nasrid rulers, designed for leisure, tranquility, escape from the formalities of the main palace, with its beautiful terraced gardens, fountains, water channels. It's an oasis.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? You mentioned this earlier. How did such intricate beauty, such dedication to artistic perfection, this oasis of peace, emerge from a period of almost constant conflict? The Reconquista was ongoing. The Nasrid kingdom was under constant threat.
It's a profound question. It speaks to an incredible capacity for cultural flourishing, a deep, deep appreciation for beauty, maybe even a desire to create a paradise on earth, even amidst surrounding adversity and eventual decline.
And while the Alhambra is, the absolute crown jewel of Moorish design in Spain, the country is just dotted with other amazing architectural treasures, isn't it? Showcasing that whole rich tapestry of history.
Absolutely. So many other significant sites worth exploring. Think of the Alcázar de Segovia.
The one that looks like a fairy tale castle.
Exactly. Perched dramatically on top of a rock, it almost looks like something out of a Disney film, though its history is very real and complex, with Roman, Moorish, and Christian elements.
Or the Castillo de Coca.
Ah, Coca is fascinating. A stunning Mudejar-style castle, built almost entirely of brick, which is unusual. It has these incredible geometric patterns built into the brickwork, amazing towers, very striking fortifications, unlike any other castle, really.
And you mentioned Alcazaba palaces. There's more than one.
Yes, Alcázaba just means citadel or fortress in Arabic. Many cities in southern Spain had one. The Alcázaba of Malaga is another major example.
What's special there?
Well, for instance, within the Alcázaba of Malaga, you can see a beautifully decorated triple archway that was actually brought there from Medina Azahara, the ruins of another vast Moorish palace complex near Córdoba, showing that continuity, that reuse of powerful Moorish forms.
And the interiors.
And stepping inside a room in the Nasrid Palace section of the Malaga Alcázaba, you again find that exquisite blend we keep seeing. The detailed ornamentation, the geometric patterns in tile and plaster, the rich textures, the way the light plays off the carved plasterwork. These aren't just ruins, they feel like truly living examples of Spain's long architectural story, written in stone, brick, and tile. Each one is a testament to the incredible layers of influence, Roman, Visigothic, Moorish, Christian, Renaissance, Baroque, that all came together to create this unique civilization. Hashtag Outrego Brown.
Wow. Okay, so we've just taken a pretty whirlwind deep dive, haven't we? Through, 1,000 years of Spanish civilization, uncovering how its unique geography, those intense political struggles, the profound religious fervor, and that incredible artistic ingenuity, how it all seems to have woven together.
Woven together to create this incredibly distinctive, resilient, and just enduring style.
Yeah. From those, stoic Visigothic foundations right through to that almost wild, flamboyant Baroque explosion, and always that enduring Moorish artistry just permeating almost everything. It really is a story of constant evolution, rich layering, and often really unexpected fusions.
And if we try and connect all this to the bigger picture, what really stands out for me about Spanish style is that constant interplay, influence and reaction. You see the Moorish legacy fundamentally shaping Romanesque and Gothic forms in ways you wouldn't expect.
Right.
You see the austere giving way dramatically to the exuberant, like that pendulum swing from disornamentado to churrigueresque. You see the global empire leaving its indelible mark on fashion, on everyday objects, influencing tastes far, far beyond Spain's own borders.
It's this constant evolution, isn't it? Always layered with that deep historical memory.
Exactly. That makes it truly unique, I think. And maybe this raises an important question for you, the listener. How does understanding these deep layers of influence, the Moorish, the Catholic, the Imperial, the European, change the way you perhaps see art, architecture, and design around you? Not just when you look at something Spanish, but maybe even in your own environment, as you start to maybe peel back the layers of influence that shape the things you see every day.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what does all this mean for you, the learner? Well, maybe it means that true understanding, real appreciation, often lies not just in being able to recognize a style, put a label on it, but in appreciating the dynamic, sometimes conflicting forces that actually forged it in the first place.
Why behind the what?
Exactly. So maybe the next time you see a horseshoe arch or a piece of intricate silverwork or even just a really well-tailored suit, perhaps you'll now sense those echoes. Echoes of Visigothic austerity, maybe, or Moorish flourish, imperial grandeur, and that unique Spanish stoicism running underneath it all. What will you look for differently now? Knowing the stories that might be etched into every line and curve.